Now it's my pleasure to invite Professor Segur to deliver the Winter 2011 Commencement Address.
I want to begin today by congratulating all the students who are graduating. Congratulations, you made it. The families of these rightfully proud graduates, congratulations, you also made it. I'm sure this has been a group effort for many of you. As you've heard, I'm from the Department of Applied Mathematics, but you can relax. There'll be no equations in what I say today, and this material will not be in a next exam. Many of you are about to move from a more structured environment called college to a less structured one called life. And my job is to provide sage advice as you begin your next adventure. You might already know that when someone gives you free advice, you get your money's worth. Here is some free advice. An ancient Chinese curse says, "May you live in interesting times." According to Wikipedia, this curse is not ancient and it's not Chinese. But the concept is very clear. Interesting times are uncertain and they can be dangerous. We live in an interesting time. Our national unemployment rate is stuck at 9%, and this is not a great time to be looking for a new job. As Bill DiStefano just told you, what a mess we have in Washington right now. These are both negatives. But 2011 is also the year in which the people of Tunisia and of Libya and of Egypt all rose up and threw out the strongmen that have been controlling them. No one knows what will happen next in any of those countries, but in my opinion, it's always positive whenever a group of oppressed people stand up and assert their own human dignity. These are interesting times. I want to focus on a small part of this big picture. Most of you will spend much of your adult lives working at something in order to pay your bills. So here are 3 recommendations aimed primarily at that part of your lives. Recommendation number 1 is very practical. When I was a college senior, I had learned how to take exams. But I was very unconvinced that the knowledge that gets you an A on an exam actually helps you function in the real world. Sometime during my senior year, I was talking to my faculty advisor, and I said, "I don't actually know much of anything. What do I do if I get a job and they actually ask me to do something?" That was a smart aleck comment, but it was based on a real concern. I had no good way to evaluate my undergraduate education. Some of you might feel the same way at this point. My advisor had a very good answer for my smart aleck question. He said, "Well, don't do nothing." Don't do nothing turned out to be excellent advice. In my first job after college, I worked as an engineer in an aerospace company. And after a few months on the job, my boss gave me an assignment about which I knew nothing. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. But I remembered this advice, don't do nothing. So I read some stuff. I figured out what I could about the problem I was given. I worked out something, and I took that back to my boss. It was not what he wanted, but it was not entirely stupid either. So he could take what I had given him and tell me how to fix it so that I got something that he wanted. So eventually it all worked out, and I was very glad to have gotten that advice. When in doubt, don't do nothing. Recommendation number 2 starts with a question. Do you know what you want to be when you grow up? Some of you have been getting questions like that since you were 6 years old, but now your answers matter. For those of you who don't know what you want to be when you grow up, I feel your pain. When I was a college senior, I was in exactly your situation. The advantage that you have at this point in your lives is flexibility. And flexibility is important in uncertain times. If you don't know what you want to do, try something. Pick a job that you think might be interesting. If it turns out to be something you like, then you're lucky because you are no longer wandering aimlessly. If it turns out to be something that you don't like, then you're also lucky, but for a different reason. You picked a job that you thought would be interesting, and you found it not so interesting. Okay, now you've learned something about your real interest. That information can be very important. I mentioned earlier that my first job after college was in the aerospace industry. I wanted to find out which parts of my education were useful and which parts I could abandon. My first job answered that question, so it was very helpful. But once I had an answer to that question, then that job wasn't really all that interesting to me. And I could see by looking around that the jobs that I would have thought were interesting required more education than I had. So after 1 year in college, I went running back to school. 1 year in the real world, I went running back to school. But when I went back to school, I had a much better idea of why I was in school and what I wanted to do with my life. So in my experience, try something is a productive strategy. My third and final recommendation is really the flip side of recommendation number 2. What about those of you who know what you want to do with your lives? If you have a strong interest in something, and if it helps other people, then I recommend that you go for it. Among the people that I know, the ones who are most satisfied with their lives spend a lot of time in positions where the job requirements line up with their own interests. Here's an example. Mary Nelson is a senior instructor in our applied math department. She likes to teach. She once asked me, what could be better than to spend your time helping kids achieve their own dreams? She enjoys teaching, so she has thought carefully about it and about how to do it better. Starting about 10 years ago, she developed a package of methods to improve how we teach our calculus courses, so that more students pass the courses, and more importantly, so that more students understand what calculus actually is. Her story demonstrates a pattern for many people who are lucky enough to have jobs that they truly enjoy. They go out of their way to do their jobs better. If they get paid for the improvement, fine. But the main reason that they develop better ways to do things is because they enjoy their jobs and they want to do them well. In my opinion, the ideal job for you is a job in which you do something that you find interesting enough that you're willing to spend some of your own free time working on it. A job like that can keep you going when things go badly, and sometimes things will go badly. Not every job will be that interesting, but it's much more fun to work in a job that you find interesting. I began by warning you of the dangers of interesting times. I'm ending by telling you of the joys of doing interesting work. So interesting can be good or bad or both. How you respond to interesting situations is up to you. Good luck in your next adventure. Thank you.